hanging
Well,
out.
I've got just one. Well, hi, 175 people. Welcome to the show. We are going to do the FiveStack in a very efficient manner today, although there's lots to talk about. What a busy news day. I don't even know where to start at, but let me start with this. Number five, the tariffs are obviously the biggest story of the day. Normally, they'd be at number one, but because we're a countdown show, we're going to put them at number five. This is quite massive what is going on. I mean, it's clearly the administration is not backing down, is going to go ahead with all these ridiculous tariffs that are about to introduce. And we're not even quite sure exactly who they're introducing it on and what tariffs they will be introducing yet. But what we do know is that it's going to cause economic chaos and economic pain for almost every American. And it seems impossible to understand why the American president is doing this, considering everyone else in the world, from the EU to the Canadians, are all ready to respond in a very serious way that's not going to help him.
No, and you know what? It's funny that you bring up the fact that what he's doing is so fucking stupid. Because I had a moment today, and the moment that I had today was I thought to myself, I'm gonna take everything that I know about Donald Trump and I'm gonna throw it in a blender and I'm gonna blend it up and I'm gonna come up with a hypothetical situation. That hypothetical situation was my opinion on what I think is going to happen tomorrow when it comes to tariffs.
Yeah.
Now the interesting part is that we know he's a liar. We know he is a PR nightmare. We know that he loves nothing more than human attention. Nothing. It's the only currency in his world that he gives a shit about. He's been ginning this up for 3 months after he won the election. Prior to, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And now because he's decided to fuck over every country in the free world that is antithetical to Russian interests, multipolar interests, Xi's interests, his interest in expansionism, he now will have the attention of the world tomorrow when he announces these tariffs. And I have a sneaking suspicion that Wall Street, everybody that associates with him, the people that fund him, are furiously sending emails, calling people associated with him, talking to him, saying, "Don't do this." Mm-hmm. And I also have another sneaking suspicion that says, I don't think he was ever going to do anything. Now, as to what happens tomorrow,
what do you mean he's not going to do anything?
He just wants people to pay attention to him. Like they're part of me. There's a small part of me that thinks that tomorrow he's going to go on a fucking rampage about the insurrection, Joe Biden, rigged elections, his 34 counts of indictment and felonies. He's probably not going to touch being an adjudicated rapist because not many people like to bring that up, including him. But I have a feeling he's just sucked all the energy out of the air just to be able to feign that he's going to do something, tell everybody he's a hero, and then at the same time, really blunt or mute whatever master plan, which nobody seems to understand. Like nobody. People around him don't know what's coming tomorrow. It's all in his fucking head. Or it's all in his head with a few other people. But a small part of me thinks that we're going to get rugged tomorrow. I really do.
He's done this before, remember Infrastructure Week, every week of the first administration? I mean, it never happens. And so maybe tariffs are never going to happen as well. But my suspicion is that he wants tariffs to happen, or his bosses want tariffs to happen, because he seems to be angling towards a recession. Like he wants the economy to collapse. He wants Americans to suffer. He wants the pain for some reason. And I don't know what would justify that, except maybe it motivates a country. Maybe it motivates your troops. Maybe it motivates people to be more aggressive with countries that you might want to be invading. So maybe there is some of that going on. That's a possibility. But the administration keeps piling on these fact sheets about how much Canada, Japan, and other countries are charging them for their dairy and whatever. They seem to be justifying what's going to happen quite cleanly, but nobody seems to be in support of this. Not even like the GOP in Congress seem to be in support of this. There's just not a desire to start this tariff war with the world. So it's deeply unpopular. And we know how he feels about deeply unpopular things. He's going to ditch them pretty quickly. Or he'll certainly try to find a way to walk them back. He doesn't want to be presiding over the immediate crash of the stock market or any of the other consequences that would happen. So you might be right. You might be right. I hope you're right. It's still.
I do too. For American workers, for Canadian workers, for people in both countries, part of we talked about it yesterday. Part of the response is going to decimate the United States of America. This is the free world lining up against the axis of evil, which Donald Trump has firmly planted the United States in. I don't want to see people lose their jobs. I don't want to see the American GDP get tanked. I don't want to see it. But there's a certain Schadenfreude associated with what he's trying to accomplish with little or no information, and the information he has is bad. That you bring up a great point. The one thing he gives a fuck about is our ratings and being liked.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he can somehow spin this into this magical cacophony of like, look at me, I saved the world from tariffs, and I brought everybody together. And part of me also thinks he's going to stand up there and go, how he said prior to the 2016 election, I could virtually stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody. Yeah. No one would say anything. He's going to do the same thing tomorrow, where he's going to say, I put the world in a fucking blender just because I could. And that might be part of it. But I just can't see how the people that have supported him, the people that have donated to him, are going to be willing to lose 5 to 10% of their net worth. I just can't see it. However, having said that, he's just fucking dumb enough to do it. So we'll see.
He really believes in tariffs. He says he believes in tariffs. He believes this is the way. Stupid. But it isn't going to work. And maybe he's looking at his economists telling him that we can't do this. The hope for tariffs is that they were going to balance his budget. They were going to bring in enough revenue to give everyone those tax cuts that he was promising. Maybe they can't do that anymore. Maybe the fact that, even the IRS is struggling to bring in the taxes they were expecting this year, the idea of lowering taxes and for the rich is just not a viable solution right now. And on top of that, these tariffs are not going to bring in the enough funding to counter that. So maybe it just isn't working out on paper, because had the tariffs worked, they would have brought in a lot of money in the short term to the federal government. But if the rest of the world isn't biting and is actually shutting off all trade or a lot of trade with America, or these reciprocal tariffs are so successful, then there is no upside to the tariffs, and you lose all the upside, and then you're just scrambling around looking for supplies, which is not where you want America to be. I did notice that, I don't know, you may be able to confirm this or not, I don't know if it's 100% confirmed, that the Royal Canadian Air Force has backed out of its 88 F-35s and is now going with 32 F-35s and then a bunch of others, for the JAS-39, the Eurofighter, the Rafale, whatever that is, and the Q400, and they're going to be building them right there in Oakville, outside of Toronto, which seems quite a typical kind of thing that you worry about if you're about to institute trade tariffs against Canada, is that they'll just build the stuff in Canada.
Yeah, the Rafale is a French fighter jet. It is on par with the F-35. The F-35 is a fucking disaster. It's a flight disaster. It has been for a long time. Canada is sticking with the minimal commitment of 32 F-35 jets, and then they're going to spread it out. They're doing this work with Sweden. They're doing it with France and the Rafale jets. And the jets that are coming out of Sweden as well, and I can't remember the name of them, but it doesn't matter. They're fifth and sixth generation fighters. Now, the interesting part of that announcement today, and you kind of pointed it out, is Canada's going to build them. Canada's going to build them with some partner countries, and they're moving away from doing anything militarily with the United States, which kind of, buttresses the conversation a little bit with, what we've talked about, which is how is the United States going to justify? And I'm pretty sure each one of those jets is something like $1 billion. I'm pretty sure.
They're expensive.
So, they're incredibly expensive. Like I can't afford one. I don't know if you can. You might on that CBS salary.
Parked back, back in the garage there.
Yeah.
Whatever, wherever you put your fighter jets.
Yeah, in the fighter jet garage. But the interesting part of that announcement was the economic advantage that it gives Canada to be able to work with France, work with other countries, to be able to manufacture parts of these jets like we manufacture automotive parts with, or used to, we'll find out tomorrow, with the United States, where our raw materials are going to go into it, their plans, their expertise when it comes to, and France is the second biggest arms dealer in the world. I don't know if you know that, but it is going to be a economic boom for Canada, a military boom for Canada, and we can control the process, which is really interesting, right? Because part of the narrative around these jets, specifically the F-35s, and this really came up when Donald Trump decided to cut intelligence and brick a whole bunch of Ukrainian software, brick a whole bunch of software that came with the arms that the United States gave Ukraine. And those reports were really loud. And Canada was like, whoa, we've got a country to the south of us that wants to take us over. We need to figure out a way to spur economic growth in this country, but we also need to figure out a way to have control over our military equipment, which everybody, 75% of the world, this is an interesting stat, I found this out the other day, buys military equipment from the United States of America. Now, if you don't think the United States of America has been building fail-safes and kill switches into that stuff, just in case a country like Canada or France goes, hey, fuck you, you're crazy. And we now know from Lockheed Martin and a whole bunch of other military equipment providers in the United States, indeed they do, and that's part of the American, military policy. So I was floored when I saw that today, because that was actually signed 2 weeks ago, and I knew about that 2 weeks ago. And a lot of people that are trying to figure out what Canada is going to do to protect itself, because people make jokes about our military. But we have still one of the strongest navies in the world. We still have, even though we don't have aircraft carriers, we actually do. We actually do. We've just invested in, I think, if I'm not mistaken, about 20 to 25 different polar icebreakers that have the ability to actually combat as well as break ice and clear out northern passage laneways. So Canada is on it. And Mark Carney did this in 2 weeks, dude. 2
I know.
weeks.
It just stuns me that, America's letting this happen, is letting the entire table of North America to be turned upside down, letting Canada suddenly develop a arms manufacturing industry, which it never had before. It's starting to build a military that can compete with the American military without all the baggage of the Pentagon and the Department of Defense for all these years. Like, to build something that's smart and reflects Canada's values as well. That can defend itself is not a good thing for America. I mean, at the end of the day, America's military industrial complex is large and massive and part of their big booming business. If they don't have that, they lose a big sector. And to have Canada, which also is the provider of so much of this raw material that goes into building these planes and these arms, and we have all the steel and all the minerals that you need for these kinds of things. It's a win-win-win for Canada, and America just loses. And so why is Donald Trump, who's Mr. Republican, Mr. GOP, Mr. Let's fight the world, Mr. Great America Great Again, giving up the great American industry that made America great? It's just no sense. It makes no sense.
Well, it makes no sense unless you understand what's at stake. And you put out a great Substack post about this today, where Putin basically kind of leaked the Arctic plan that he has with Xi and Donald Trump. It makes no sense unless you understand what's underlying here. If you're willing to sacrifice, the greatest military complex and literally tens of billions of dollars for the people who put you in that position, so that you can give your partners, geopolitical partners, land, access to different countries, the Arctic, Canada, Greenland, Thailand, Ukraine. Like, if you're willing to do that, then the monetary aspects of it don't make any sense. Because they clearly don't. Lockheed Martin put out a note the other day. There was a conversation that I had with someone who talked to someone at Lockheed Martin who's like, this is craziness. Like, we're losing our shirts. Yeah. And it's not about the stock market. It's about the faith in what the United States is and what it was and what it will be, right? Yeah. So, to your point, it makes no sense. Makes perfect sense to Canadians. Makes no sense to Americans. Is, what are you doing to the United States of America from a position of weakness and taking the position of strength and putting yourself in a position of weakness? Even talking about Pete Hegseth taking 8% of the military budget and slashing it every year for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
There's no specific reason for that other than it doesn't make any sense unless you consider, the global geopolitical play of turning, the globe into a multipolar world.
Yeah, and then you've got, if Russia and China line up with America and trying to get Canada or trying to get Greenland or whatever it is. I don't know what the big picture plan really is, but this is stuff they were alluding to. If you think you're going to get Canada at the end of the day, you don't mind losing a little bit to them for the next couple of years because you think you're going to get them anyhow.
Do you remember the Avro Arrow?
Yeah, I do remember the Avro Arrow, which is a Canadian plane, right? It was built in Canada and then just disappeared. Like they basically
dumped it in Lake Ontario.
Yeah, because they didn't want to offend America, really. I mean, that was sort of some of it.
It's interesting. Yeah, that might have been part of it. But, the second, Canada built this supersonic fighter jet. It was second to none in the world. They built it from scratch, and it was under Diefenbaker. Now, the second that happened, Kennedy sent a group of people up here, American envoys, and within days, and this was like big fucking news. Like Canada was at the forefront of military defense, military spending for a very fucking long time up until this happened. And the United States came in, they sent an envoy here to basically neuter the industry, the military industry in Canada. And they told Kennedy's people told Diefenbaker, they said, get rid of this. You're making us look ridiculous. We'll just protect you. You don't have anything to fucking worry about. You can get all your stuff from us, but you don't even really need it because Canada's kind of like this border state where every major population is like, we'll take care of all that because you're so close to us. That was the start of the defenestration of the Canadian military industrial complex, which is why a lot of people joke around about it. Now, Mark Carney has taken this seriously, and I appreciate him for doing it. Every other prime minister up until this point, unless being pushed by Trump, and he's the only reason why we're doing this, has willingly submitted to the United States and the military industrial complex. Now, the Avro Arrow is the reason why, and not a lot of people are talking about it, because the second we fucking went, hey, guess what? We just fucking made this incredible fighter jet that makes everything that you make look like shit. It goes faster than your stuff, bigger payloads. We can target. We're really good at this. The United States shit their pants, sent people up here, and they literally they cut up the Avro Arrow, and they dumped the plans for it, and they dumped all the pieces for it into Lake Ontario. That's where this started.
That's a really interesting angle because it's like, it reminds me of Ukraine. Ukraine was giving all these security guarantees to drop its nukes, to lose its nukes, which America helped them do. And then they, 20, 30 years later are finding themselves in a position where they can't even defend themselves against this Russian aggression because their nukes and the security guarantees have disappeared. Like, I mean, America's just turning out to be not a very trustworthy partner in the world. And that's just seems to be the mission of the Donald Trump presidency, is to make everybody distrust America, which is what they're doing. Number 4 on the list is, today, thousands of federal employees, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, were notified this morning at 5 a.m. by email of reduction in force mails, in letters. These are called RIF letters. According to the Wired magazine, they shuttered programs that directly serve and inform the American public on these big issues like the Division of Population Health, the Division of HIV Prevention, the Division of Reproductive Health, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, and the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control. And all of those divisions, like big divisions, was shut down today. All the people who do that kind of stuff, who look after all these populations and all the needs for your, when you go to work, when you go, how safely those places are operated, to things like reproductive health. Can you imagine taking away that division? And I don't know where those people are going, but it also includes other programs like the Centers for Chronic Disease Prevention. I mentioned HIV, but also viral hepatitis, STD, and tuberculosis prevention. These are massive, massive programs that have just been completely skewered by the Robert Kennedy, who's now the health secretary. Robert Califf, who used to run the FDA, which is another part of Kennedy's world that has been torn to shreds today, said he was on a coast-to-coast flight, and he said, "I'm overwhelmed with messages about the firings. The FDA, as we've known it, is finished. This is the Food and Drug Administration, with most of the leaders with institutional knowledge and deep understanding of product development and safety no longer employed. I believe that history will see this as a huge mistake. I'll be glad if I'm proven wrong, but even then, there is no good reason to treat people this way. It'll be interesting to hear from the new leadership how they'll put Humpty Dumpty back together again." It's damning stuff and really, really dangerous, scary for Americans.
Yeah, and you know who did all those firings today? A 19-year-old named Big Dong and another 20-year-old named Big Balls or whatever the fuck they call
Yeah.
themselves, and Elon Musk, who says he's not a government organization. He's been allowed. What's that?
Sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt you, but you know that they put one of those big balls guys as the head of the Institute for Peace that they were trying to shut down because they fired the guy who's like a 60-year veteran of the foreign affairs and just like brilliant diplomat. They got rid of him and they shut down the whole thing. And they wanted to extract the building and take over the building. In order to do that, they had to put one of these Doge kids as the head, as the interim head of the Peace Institute. And so now the institute is run by this like 19-year-old little, squirt.
Shit.
Yeah.
Little shit.
Yeah.
You can call him a shit. You don't have to call him a squirt. I haven't heard that story. That is very much in line with everything that has been going on in the United States of America. Hey, listen, you want to kill some people, get rid of all regulation, right? Get rid of food and drug regulation, get rid of disease regulation, get rid of every watchdog, get rid of every organization that tries to, keep people safe, keep people fed, keep people medicated where it's needed. Specifically in the United States, this is a disaster. Like we're not talking about a normal time in the United States. Like, think about what he did today. Think about what Trump let Elon Musk do today. They got rid of the people that are fucking keeping track of Ebola worldwide. Mm-hmm. They got rid of people that are, at the forefront of every major pandemic. This is after coming out of a pandemic that killed millions of fucking Americans.
We're in the middle of bird flu. Bird flu is happening right now.
Yeah, that's why they don't have eggs, dude.
Yeah.
That's weird. But it is painfully obvious to me that Trump is legitimately trying to murder Americans in as many innocent or that's a shame kind of ways as humanly possible.
I've heard this theory before, and it would be absolutely appalling. I mean, I've heard that it's actually contained in Project 2025, but I've never actually seen the actual portion of that says they're looking for a population reduction. But and it's to some extent, population control is an important thing that Americans and any government has to do with it. But this is genocide. This is not population control. This is we're going to basically take the bottom 25% of a society that can't afford healthcare, that is, costing us money because they're on the welfare rolls. We're going to basically eliminate them.
Yep.
Which makes no sense for any country that's growing, that needs people, that needs growth, that needs people. You don't get growth unless you have population. But I guess they're either feeling like they could replace them, or they feel like they don't need them, or they just feel like they don't want to pay these costs. And most of them, unfortunately, this is just code for really people who are either Black Americans or non-white Americans. And really seems to be, what they're trying to do is sort of ethnic cleanse America.
Yeah, it's a purge. It's a purge, and there's a financial benefit to people like Trump and everybody's associated with, and this administration too. If you take the people who need the most help, and if you're a greedy enough cock, and you take them and you put them in no man's land where there's no medicine, there's no advocacy, there's no food, there's no medical treatment, there's no nothing, they will die.
Yeah,
they will die. And then you completely eliminate the social programs around them. You completely eliminate any issues, and then you reinstitute or resatisfy those programs with ones that are more beneficial to the top 5% in that country. To your point, this is an effort to, and it's weird because I feel like a conspiracy theorist saying it. This is an effort to give the United States a haircut, and that haircut will only include the poorest, the most marginalized, people of color, people who just got there, people who are looking for a better life, the American dream, all those things. MAGA is literally trying to genocide the people who take the most from the people who have the most. That's what this is.
Well, and for sure, that's, economically as well what they're doing. They're taking away the money from the poor people and giving it to the rich. So you're seeing it echo in a bunch of places. Mm-hmm. And, the truth of it is, this is how you strike fear into a population. This is how, if you want to be dictator and you want loyalty and you want people to serve you like the leader that you think you are, well, this is what you do. You strike fear, because the alternative is that you become one of the outsiders who doesn't get the help, who doesn't get the health services. And then, you're either dying or suffering. So if you want to be part of, Team Trump, you have to give him complete loyalty, and then you'll get all these services back, presumably.
Did you
Which
see
is
the story of the El Salvadorian father, the
yeah.
Venezuelan
Oh my
father,
gosh, yeah.
with no criminal record, no gun, no MS-13 gang ties, no nothing. He's just a guy that came to the United States
Mm,
legally in the United States, who's currently rotting in that El Salvadorian concentration camp. It is
mhm,
not a fucking prison; it is a work camp.
mhm,
Um, that is being promoted by MAGA more than it's being promoted by people who feel badly for the guy, who think this
mhm,
is an affront. And the reason why is, to your point, fear.
mhm,
It is, we want people to fear us. We want people to look over their shoulder. If they're black, white, marginalized, Hispanic, immigrant, someone from another country, someone who's on the dole, someone who takes from us. And this gentleman paid his taxes for a very fucking long time.
mhm,
He was an upstanding Venezuelan citizen who was in the United States legally, who Donald Trump and Caroline Levitt invented this narrative around. It's like, he's MS-13, so we sent him there. And they admitted today that, oh yeah, it was a clerical
yeah.
error. Clerical error? No, it wasn't a clerical error. You did that on fucking purpose so that you could pimp that out, which they are doing today,
Mhm.
lying about the reasoning behind it so they can make Americans afraid that it might happen to them.
Exactly. Stay in line. Don't go out and protest. Don't do any of the things that you. The same thing they're doing with universities. They're chilling free speech in universities by cutting all these grants. It's a chilling effect. And maybe the economy, the tariffs, and all these other things are the same thing. Imagine you're someone who's working at a plant in Buffalo that's supplying something to Canada through across the border.
Mm.
Suddenly that stops. Suddenly you're out of work. But suddenly you look around and everyone else is out of work. So now you're all competing for non-existent jobs. You're all starting to look for food. Hey, the food banks don't have any food anymore because they've canceled the food bank programs. The Meal on Wheels programs being canceled. So your
Yeah, they canceled
grandmother,
Meals on
yeah,
Wheels today.
yeah, they don't have
Fucking
any
crazy.
any food coming to them. You're looking around trying to figure out what to do with your kids. The education department's been cut, so you don't even get any help there, and there's no social welfare, no help in any way for you to survive, and so you're going to get these squalid conditions that are just going to develop pretty quickly. So
Mm.
you see that whole big picture, and then there's no disease control, no management, no effective drug deliveries or immunization happening. So you just get this decline that it can be very, very precipitous and really kind of crazy. Um, who knows if that's what they're trying to do? Probably not. I would hope not, but
That's exactly what they're
I
trying
know,
to do.
I'm trying to say it's not, but looks to me like it's when you look at all these pieces together,
Yeah.
it's designed to hurt everybody at the same time with maximum cruelty, and then really strike fear into the hearts of everybody.
Cruelty is the point, Zev.
Yeah,
Cruelty is the point because it works. People
yeah,
get afraid. They fall in line. They don't speak up. They don't speak out. You murder a bunch of people. You send a whole bunch of American citizens to concentration camps for crossing you. It works.
yep,
It works
yeah.
for a bit until everybody rises up. And like I said, I'm really happy. The Second Amendment exists in the United States because Democrats and libertarians own guns too.
Boy, that's a difficult scenario to swallow, but it might, who knows? It's a really difficult time. We'll see what happens tonight. This is story number 3. I will go quickly here. There's an election happening. There's the 2 elections. One is the first congressional district, replacing the Matt Gaetz seat. That one is likely to go Republican. It looks to me like Republicans are still showing up in favor of Republican candidates. It doesn't seem like the message of fear has gotten into any of them. They just think that Elon Musk is the bomb and that Donald Trump is doing everything he promised he would do, and everything is a-okay in D.C. We're no longer expecting those big margins to be cut back, which is what we were thinking as early as yesterday. Maybe the Michael Waltz seat is a little bit more tricky. Maybe he's a little bit more contested. Maybe the riding, the Democrats will squeeze back some of the Republican support there. But these are heavily Republican zones. That's why these guys were selected in the first place. My guess is we won't see anything super exciting, but we'll know at 7 o'clock is the first one. I think the first congressional district will start reporting results in just an hour, and the 6th congressional district probably an hour after that. And then later on tonight, the Wisconsin Supreme Court election at 9 p.m. That could take a while to settle. This is the Elon Musk, election, which is determinative. By the way, there is a reason. We spoke yesterday of what the reason is. What his personal beef is that they could
Talk
have
to me.
they have a Tesla lawsuit that they could be or a court case that they could be voting on, this particular board could be voting on. And his interest in this Wisconsin Supreme Court election was only 8 days after the court was filed, the court case was filed. So, there you go. If you're looking for a reason that Elon Musk is doing this, it's not about the gerrymandering as he claims. It's about his Tesla lawsuits and trying to protect his own pocket. So, no surprise there.
What did we say yesterday? We said that, Elon Musk, to have been giving away millions of dollars. By the way, he gave the second $1 million check to a Russian citizen, which is fucking unbelievable.
Gets funneled back to Putin afterwards.
Probably a Russian citizen living in Wisconsin, and I don't know how that fucking happens. But what did we say yesterday? We said that he only gets involved in things that are detrimental to him, and he wants to change those things. I had no idea Wisconsin had greenlit charges and investigation into him. What were they for?
I don't know. I didn't get the full details. I just heard, I got this in passing, and I was like, oh, I got to remember this for you tonight. But I haven't looked through the details. Awesome. But there's something, it's legit, and there's something big there. And you can just see how he is. I mean, you could see that he wouldn't be spending his time or money or energy doing anything unless it was about lining his own pockets.
Well, listen. I don't know if this is in the FiveStack today, but did you hear? If the investigation was into Tesla, did you hear the audio, the leaked audio of him in the Oval Office with Trump?
Was that real? I couldn't tell if it was real or not. Oh my God. I can't tell anymore if it's real or not, but he is sobbing. He is
unhappy. He's sad. He's scared. He's going, it's over. It's bad. It's real bad, man. And Trump's like, don't worry. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out. We'll do, it'll be fine. And so he's like, no, it's really fucking bad. Like, I'm going to lose it all. And I laughed because I read as I'm listening to it, and I had it vetted. Everybody has kind of vetted it, and it apparently is real. Mm-hmm. Led to the Rose Garden infomercial for Tesla, mm-hmm. But it brought everything that he's doing into line. Right? It brought everything that he's doing from hurting Americans and the hubris and him running around with chainsaws, cutting government programs into government agencies specifically that are targeting him.
It's crazy.
It's
crazy.
Unbelievable to me.
You said it was a Russian citizen who got the $1 million check today?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was a Russian immigrant who was a Russian citizen as well. Yeah.
I mean, and look, the Tesla thing. What I don't get today is, according to a Russian disinformation site, which could be completely wrong, is he's still the richest man in the world. Technically, his worth is actually increased by $75 billion, if that's even possible, in 1 year, last year. So I got to check out why they still think that, considering he's saying he's sobbing in the White House in front of Donald Trump in tears because his Tesla's company is falling apart. I mean, that's and how did the tape leak? Is my question.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Like, when I first heard it, I'm like, this can't be real.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that anybody would allow a camera there. But I think Donald Trump recorded it and leaked it.
That would be my guess. That's the guess. You got to believe he records everything, right?
Well, because he's like, oh, for fucking sure he does. Because in this tape, and it's really funny, it's like Trump appears to be like this comforting, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And if you know anything about Trump, the thing that he hates the most is being challenged by another authority. Like he is recalcitrant times 10. And so like he's always looking for ways to fuck over people that might fuck him. And Elon Musk will fuck Donald Trump if he gets a chance. So Donald Trump knows that Elon Musk will fuck him too.
Oh yeah. So he's doing it first. And so I mean, this is why there's all this talk about him leaving after 130 days. And it may happen. It may happen that he leaves in May or June. Although I'll wait to see if that really, really happens. Because this man.
I don't know. He wears like a really nice, like Elon's gets to wear like nice government issue jackets that make him look like a general. So I don't think he'll give it up in June.
He loves the power. He loves the power. Yeah. My number 2 story, by the way, was this weird thing about Mangione, the Luigi Mangione killer, being. According to Pam Bondi, she wants the death penalty for this guy who hasn't even been indicted yet. So I don't know why the Attorney General feels like it's necessary to opine on the story. But this is a story that really fascinates me because what hasn't been explored is this guy's adherence to Peter Thiel and Elon Musk's ideology. And I think we need to explore that more. And my number 1 story is... Oh, baby, crying. My number 1 story...
People at my neighbors are crying in the background.
Oh,
Sorry about
that's
that.
no, it's nice. It's cute. Real life. Imagine that outside your window. And the number one story was the story you mentioned earlier on about the speech that Vladimir Putin gave just a couple of days ago in the capital of the Arctic North in
Norway.
in Russia,
Mm.
and he was talking all about basically providing everyone the actual, precedent, this narrative that he's created. He does all this research, I guess, into how previously the United States attempted to get Donald Trump. Sorry, attempted to it's hard to do. Attempted to get Greenland through these various initiatives in the past, all the way back to the 1860s. He goes. And I'm
Yeah.
listening to this crap, and he's like, and then they tried again in 1910, and then I mentioned, and then I was like, this is what he's doing. He is basically
Yeah.
doing what he did to Ukraine. He's making up a bullshit narrative of things that
Yeah.
barely happened or might have happened with a little bit of kernels of truth, and then he is going to create permission, basically, for Donald Trump to do what he's doing. So he's building this disinformation narrative, and it's blatantly obvious. I think it's not as good as he used to be, or we're just so aware of it now. But he is doing that work. I mean, and that should be worrying to people that he's doing that work, because you don't go building narratives like that unless you actually intend to follow through with it at some point. I mean, and he is basically setting the groundwork for America has always wanted Greenland and therefore should attack it. And very little mention of Canada, very little mention. And at one point in the speech, he goes, um, I don't understand why Finland and Sweden joined NATO. I don't understand. I don't understand why they would do that. Dude, they joined because of you attacking Ukraine.
Because you dick. Yeah, totally.
It's like,
I watched, I did some reading on it, and I'm actually getting ready to post an article. You've done an amazing job covering his Arctic dreams and why he's moving everything. I think he's got 40 bases now in the Arctic. The goal there is for him. But here's the thing. In that speech, what he didn't talk about was something that a lot of people are talking about, is that they're broke. They got nothing. They got nothing left. And Ukraine has bled them dry to the point where they can't even realize that dream to this point. But when we talk about the bigger play here, to your point, he's greasing the wheels for the rest of the free world, not free world, the rest of his allies, to be able to go in and do things like take over Taiwan, to go over and take over South Korea, for Donald Trump and the United States to take over Greenland and the United States.
Canada.
And in Canada. And JD Vance has been on a fucking Greenland heater recently. Like his magical trip where there was like literally no one waiting for him. He goes to this little army base and he's like, you haven't paid attention to the needs of the people of Greenland. The people of Greenland responded today with their prime minister. Basically, they said, go fuck yourself. We love it here. We will never be part of Greenland, ever, or we'll never be part of the United States. We're our own country. We're our own sovereign nation.
Yeah.
So Putin is, to your point, trying to convince everybody. It's a PR grift, right? Trying to convince everybody like Donald Trump does with his tweets, where he's like, the cherished nation of Canada will be an amazing 51st state. The people of Greenland really want us there. And Donald Trump's like, yeah, that was originally ours anyway.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that Putin says. That was originally ours anyway. But Putin said something really interesting. He's like, Greenland's got nothing to do with me. That's Donald Trump.
Which is crazy.
Which is like, fucking, no, you're pressing all those buttons yourself. So it's on. Like the PR push to try to convince people, to warm people up to the idea that a multipolar world will be a good idea, and the things that he wants were originally theirs to begin with.
Yeah.
That is the entire point of this operation.
And what you're also saying is very true about this economic imperative here, because, who is going to invest in these little Arctic dreams that he has of building these cities up in the most coldest places in the world, which are barely penetrable at the best of times. Yeah. He wants to build all these tourist attractions and these roads and these railways and these airports. He needs the money for that. That money is going to come from China. Or maybe the UAE. That's probably the other place that money is going to come from. And so basically what he's doing is, yes, setting the permission structure for Donald Trump to invade Greenland or whatever for his benefit, for his national interest. But also, he's trying to get these investors on board. He's trying to get China and the UAE to fund this little expansionist effort. So he is a bit of a paper tiger. If he doesn't get the money, he can't do any of this. And if people start, disbelieving his narratives, which I think is what, why I published the story this morning. I was like, we have to get on this really early. And then, whenever the narrative starts, you got to get there really
Oh,
early
it's a
and
great story. You did a great job.
Thank you. And start breaking it down. So people now know they can be armed with this information whenever this comes up, that is bullshit, that his narrative is bullshit. And his narrative is just designed to empower Donald Trump. And so, again, if as many people who can get this out, the better, because that's how we got to stop this narrative from building.
Yeah, I'm going to put a post up that kind of really complements the work that you've done. I haven't, by the way, lifted any of it.
You're welcome to put. We'll lift the whole thing and enjoy it.
No, I wouldn't. Although I might. No, I wouldn't.
You can totally.
But listen, if you want me to brass tacks what we're talking about, the importance of the Canadian election and the importance of Ukraine winning are. I can't overstate it enough. The importance of Mark Carney becoming Canada's next prime minister and not Pierre Poilievre, who is purely aligned with Donald Trump, purely aligned with MAGA, Elon Musk, Alex Jones, everybody. That is a big fucking deal because we're a bulkhead for democracy and sovereignty in this country. But if Canada falls and Ukraine falls, Western civilization and democracy might be fucked.
Yeah.
Because we're the only people holding back Donald Trump in the United States at the moment. The Europeans are the only people holding back Vladimir Putin at the moment. So, to your point and your incredible article, go to Narrative Substack and read it about Putin in the Arctic. To your point, they're starting to talk about these plans out loud because it's that time. It's the time to warm people up to it because they want to do it. They want to invade sovereign countries so that they can take over sovereign countries. And it gets a lot easier if you elect maple maggots like Pierre Poilievre. It gets a lot easier if you are able to take over Ukraine. So I cannot stress enough the importance of what Canada means to Western civilization, but what it means to the free world and Ukraine right now. Both of these countries, our country, Ukraine, we're tied together. And it's not just, you don't look at Canada and Ukraine and you go, oh, well, I hope they win because they're nice people and they're nice countries and they're being invaded or threatened. Same with Greenland. No, because you're next. I mean, we're having a conversation that we never thought we'd have in Canada. Like, fuck, we got to build our military up. We got to fucking fortify our borders. We need to diversify trade. We need to build an energy corridor. Like all the cave people, the hippies, they're like, yeah, build the energy corridor. Like, fucking let's do it. Because that's at stake. So if Canada falls, Ukraine falls.
Democracy falls. I mean, that's what you're saying is so important. When I read the speech this morning, I was like, this guy, this is the first time I've actually thought, well, there's two things that happened this week: the Hexeth leaks about the defense of the near abroad, and then home abroad, and then the speech by Putin. I was like, these two things in concert. You've got the military actually planning to go into military operations in this hemisphere. And then you've got Vladimir Putin laying the narrative, explaining why, America always had a right to the Greenland and always had it. We didn't mention Canada, but, implicit in all of that is where he was going. And so you've got, these two things happening outside of Donald Trump's world, but inside Donald Trump's world, obviously. And he's been talking about not taking off military force on Greenland. So those three things, you look at that and you're like, wow, this is serious. This is actually a plan. They're executing it. It's no longer something they're saying on a campaign trail. It's no longer something they're saying in quiet, dark rooms around the world. These are actual plans that are beginning to be executed. And Americans need to know that their sons and daughters, if they're in the military, are going to be fighting for Vladimir Putin. This is Putin has taken over the presidency of America, and he is basically got a president in there who's going to take your kids and send them to war against your allies, for his benefit, for his benefit, because at the end of the day, Greenland is a big bothersome thing for him. And, if the further away Greenland is, the less of an issue it is. And certainly if it's controlled by a Manchurian leader here, then he's no problem. So, he is doing, and he wants Americans to spill their blood for him. And that to me is that kind of stuff is when the metal hits the road and people have to start thinking about whether that's an acceptable future for them, with no freedoms and no democracy, and your kids getting thrown into battle, into meat grinders, essentially, for the purposes of building some guy who you don't even know in some faraway land who thinks he's an emperor.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we're at. And for the Canadians, and for NATO, this is it, guys. This is a moment, and there is no other option. Canada needs to win, NATO needs to win, and so everything needs to be done to get that to happen. And to your point, I think Carney's a godsend at this time, because can you imagine? I mean, this is really a great leader to have, someone who's working so quickly and efficiently with all this, and on top of that, building a plan in the middle of an election. It's just very impressive that he's doing that. So
yeah, he can multitask, which is good. To your point, I can't again go back to how important this election is in Canada, how important it is we stop Russia in Ukraine. This is why Germany is upping the ante. This is why every EU country is upping the ante. This is why Canada is choosing to do some historic things, when it comes to our economy, our military. This is why you're seeing the unity behind the movement here in Canada, because there's nothing more important to us than our sovereignty. There's nothing more important to us than who we are. So, I love how we have rallied. Donald Trump is a fraud. We'll find out tomorrow how those tariffs go, how much of a fraud he is, and I have an opinion that he will be a fraud. But I believe in democracy in this world, and I believe that Canada and Ukraine and the rest of the free world are going to come together and whoop that ass. That's how I feel.
Yeah, and defend America and liberate America. I mean, the thing is, we're all on the same side. The truth is that the person who's not on our side is Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and he's and the Trump administration. Everybody else is on the right side of history on this thing. And Canada, Ukraine, NATO is all going to be there and going to come liberate America. I think it's the only way it's going to happen. And I hope Americans also hit the streets this weekend on April 5th, because I think, we need to show a sign to this guy that Americans really are not taking any of this. So that'll be the only last thing I'd say about that. And do you want to say anything else?
That's all you got to say. That's it.
All right.
You want to say anymore? You don't want to talk anymore? You don't want to inform people anymore? You don't want to entertain people anymore? You just want to take your ball and go home, take your entertainment ball and peace out?
I'm going to do that because I'm going to be back in 40 minutes. I'm going to do this.
Okay, you get out of here.
with Rick Petrie. I'll be doing that on Substack and on X in 40 minutes.
His dad invented the Petri dish.
I'm going to tell him that. I'll inform him of his dad's brilliance. Dean Blundell is at the Dean Blundell Substack at deanblundell.substack.com. I'm at narrative.org, narrativ.org. Thank you very much for your support on this show. It's also a podcast. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Subscribe to it, download it, do whatever you need to do, because it's a good listen wherever you need to go. And you can always find us live at 5:30 Monday to Friday on a Substack. Did I say always? I mean
almost always.
Almost always.
Yeah.
And thanks for being here. Your support has been terrific on the show. We look forward to doing this with you again tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.